Number 10. Serpent Mound. The Great Serpent Mound is a 1,400-foot long, 3-foot high prehistoric effigy located in Peebles, Ohio, United States. Serpent Mound was first reported via surveyors Ephraim Squire and Edwin Davis and was featured in their Ancient Monuments of Mississippi book back in 1848. Looks just like a regular golf course, doesn't it? But underneath, it's perfectly placed and well-preserved earth formations that were made by hand to align with something in the sky. The mound is the largest serpent effigy in the world. Yeah, big snake. The mound itself winds back and forth for more than 800 feet with its tail coiling in 7 different areas. Tons of Clovis-era spearheads have been found that indicate interaction with other groups of ancient humans, along with the Denisovans and the Neanderthals. Archaeologists believe that the mound's creation was influenced by 2 astronomical events: the light from the supernova Crab Nebula in 1054 and Halley's Comet in 1066. The mound is also located on an ancient meteorite impact location, which makes things absolutely way scarier. In 2003, geologists from Ohio State University and Glasgow said the meteorite impact origin of the structure at Serpent Mound is the best evidence for its build and importance. Yeah, nothing crazy, just a mile-long, cosmically aligned serpent made out of rocks, made from prehistoric dudes who could barely work fire right on top of a huge impact location. Yeah. Something's fishy here. Number 9. The Terracotta Army. Hey, if you dig what we do here on Bumblebee, make sure you hit us up with a like button or comment down below which discovery in ancient history has you laying awake at night. I know mine. Let me know, I'll check it out. The Terracotta Army, don't even get me started, was first discovered in 1974 by a group of farmers east of the Queen Emperor's tomb mound at Mount Lee. For centuries, reports mentioned pieces of the terracotta fragments found, roofing tiles, bits of brick, masonry, but when they discovered heads of clay bodies, yeah, the Chinese archaeologists started to investigate and dig a little bit deeper. To this day, it remains the largest pottery group ever found on Earth. The Terracotta Army is a collection of sculptures depicting the armies of the Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. Apparently a form of funerary art buried with the emperor around 209 BCE with the purpose of protecting him in the afterlife. 8,000 soldiers, 130 chariots, 520 horses, and 150 cavalry. Yeah. That's a lot of protection. The site is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site and has been since 1987. I'm just getting Medusa vibes when I look at this, you know? Like, I'm not convinced the actual purpose of this operation. Like, was it a front? Were they once alive? Who knows, dude? This place is mysterious. But cool. Number 8. The Antikythera Mechanism. The Antikythera Mechanism is an anomaly ancient computer that uses the cosmos to predict astronomical events. A group of sea sponge divers discovered the Antikythera shipwreck in early 1900 just off the island in Greece. Hence, the name. I find it funny that divers diving for something you wipe your butt with found an ancient computer just chilling down there. Something about that makes me laugh. Many think it's cursed too due to its first handlings. Apparently after its discovery, 3 of the divers who dove down died shortly after its find. 150 feet deep just off Point Glyphadia, the team retrieved millions in worth of bronze, marble, pottery, glassware, jewelry, coins, and of course, this ancient MacBook. This device is made entirely out of a single bronze sheet built within a wooden case about the size of a shoebox. Faces and cogs covered in Greek inscriptions indicating the device's astronomical calendar, purpose, use, basically everything we have on our iPhone right now within this wooden box 2,200 years ago. Yeah, again, collecting sea sponges to wipe our butts with and then just stumbling upon a computer. I don't know, someone's getting a raise, I'll say that. Number 7, the Codex Gigas. Basically translates to giant book, Codex Gigas. And it's giant, 170 pounds. It's the largest medieval manuscript in the world. Also known as the Devil's Bible. Yeah, due to the highly detailed full-page portrait of Satan himself, the demonology written within, and the legend around its initial creation. Made out of 180 donkeys, the famous myth is that a scribe traded his soul to the Prince of Darkness so that he could complete and master the contents of the universe written within this one book, comprised in only one night. Created in the early 13th century in the Benedictine monastery of Bohemia, now modern-day Czech Republic, this book's creepy. Yeah, it contains the complete Bible, like the Old One and the New Testament, as well as everything medicinal and cosmological that a human would know at Earth at that time. All written in Latin, and of course predated glyphs, and of course missing the last 10 pages of the book. Yep, ripped out and missing. I don't know. Who knows? The book lays in the National Library of Sweden in Stockholm. I wouldn't go near it. I wouldn't read it. I wouldn't even touch it. You know, I'm good with goosebumps. That scares me enough. Number 6, the oldest map. A 4,000-year-old stone slab first first discovered over a century ago in France, may be the oldest known map in Europe according to a new study. The slab dates back to the early Bronze Age, 4,000 years ago. It was first discovered in 1900 in a prehistoric burial site in Finistère, France. The engravings on the broken stone appear to resemble topographical features including hills, reference points, and river networks. The broken slab, which is 4 meters long, was moved to a private museum in France in 1924. It was then stored in a French castle where it gathered dust until it was rediscovered in the castle cellar in 2014. But only recently are researchers beginning to understand the actual importance behind this prehistoric slab rock. It's been interpreted as the oldest cartographical map in Europe. Yeah, that's old. Number 5. The Voynich manuscript. There's a giant Italian Renaissance folio called the Voynich manuscript. It's named after Wilfrid Voynich, a book dealer who purchased it in 1912, and to this day we don't really know what it is. Hands down, the most mysterious book of all time. Not only is it detailed so carefully and patiently, it's basically like a Tim Burton take on a book about life, with an entire world drawn and recorded that isn't ours. Like parallel universe type stuff. Even the language is unknown, like unknown, like predates Latin and doesn't use phonetic patterns in coding. The riddle of all riddles. Written somewhere between 1405 and 1450, all 240 pages are inscribed in some sort of indecipherable language of about 170,000 characters. Historians and cartographers have tried to crack the code for hundreds of years, yet not one has been successful. Why wasn't this a national treasure movie? I feel like this would have been perfect, like Nicolas Cage, you know? I don't know. Number 4. The Nazca Lines. The ancient, very mysterious geoglyphs that make up the soil of the Nazca Desert in southern Peru is an old one. They were created, we think, somewhere between 1000 BCE and 500 AD. Basically, people would make impressions or shallow incisions on the desert floor, removing pebbles, leaving colored dirt exposed, drawing some sort of depictions of fauna and humanoid scribbles for only those above Earth to visually see. Basically what I'm trying to say here is that these are giant, ancient, unknown drawings you can only accurately depict from space, or from like drones hundreds of miles in the air. In the years leading up to 2020, between 80 and 100 new figures have been found with the use of drones and cameras since at least year 1900. Yo, who's drawing these things? And why is the mountain ranges so perfectly square and flat, like it's been laser cut to draw on? More than 70 designs are zoomorphic, including birds, spiders, fish, lizards, and of course, humans. Lots of different shapes and clothing and builds of humans. Interesting. It became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1994. Yeah, I'd like to think so. I feel like this is gonna be on Art Attack. Number 3. The Mother of Dragons. Mary Anning was an English fossil collector, dealer, and paleontologist who became famously known around the world for her discoveries in Jurassic marine fossil beds in the cliffs along the English Channel at Lyme Regis in southwest England. I'm not talking about finding a tooth or something. She found 3 species of dinosaurs. Like 3 different species o dinosaur. Anning's findings contributed to a massive scientific research pushing prehistoric academia towards the future. In 1811, when Mary was only 12, she found a bizarre fossilized skull. Mary then searched for and dug the outline of its 5.2 meter long skeleton, and by the time she was done, everyone in the town knew that she had discovered something important. Scientists thought this was some sort of ancient crocodile. People were puzzled. 10 years later, she discovers a completely new skeleton of plesiosaur. 2 years later, she found one with wings. Today, the Natural History Museum in London showcases several of Mary Anning's historic finds, including her ichthyosaurus, plesiosaur, and pterosaur. Dude, there needs to be like at least 3 movies about her on Netflix, no? Like Jurassic Park, England. Number 2, Göbekli Tepe. This mysterious ancient site in the southeastern Anatolia region of Turkey is dated between 1000 and 12,000 BCE. The site comprises of a number of large man-made structures supported by massive stone megalithic pillars. Göbekli Tepe, or known simply as Potbelly Hill, is the oldest place of which megaliths were mounted. The oldest. Like ever, and most confusing. Pillars richly decorated with promorphic details, clothing, wild animals, fauna, star systems. Archaeologists are puzzled, to say the least. Famous German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt views Göbekli Tepe as a Stone Age sanctuary. Radiocarbon dating indicates that it contains the oldest known ruins that holster butchered bones of not only deer, but pigs, birds, geese, fish. They've been identified as cooked food, prepared for large groups as festivals or feasts. Yeah, they don't really know exactly what this place was used for, but after finding all this academia and scientific knowledge, it's certain that this place was used by scholars of high order to either teach or study the skills of masonry, as well as the cosmos. And it's only been about 1/10 discovered so far. Yeah, just about 1/10. Who knows what other secrets Göbekli Tepe has to unveil? Let's get those other 9/10ths undug, no? And the number 1 spot, ancient Greek shipwreck. The oldest ancient Greek shipwreck ever discovered in the Black Sea, and you would never guess by looking at it. This ship is from 400 BC. It's an ancient Greek trading vessel. Not huge, but somehow, this ship has been kept in almost perfect condition for over 2,400 years, a mile below the sea surface. The lack of oxygen actually preserved the ship, and that's why it looked like it sank last year and not thousands of years ago. John Adams, principal investigator with the Black Sea Archaeology Project, describes the finding as something he never thought was even possible, let alone something he'd witnessed with his own eyes in his lifetime. This discovery changed what we know about ships in the ancient world. It is to date the oldest intact shipwreck ever known to mankind. It can't be beat. This thing is older than most curses. I say pull it up, slap some paint on her, get her going again, no? Quality versus quantity back then? Things were just built to last back then. History. Number 10, the Lincoln Park Zoo. Right off the bat, not a big fan of zoos, not gonna lie. Lots of land where animals can roam free and safe, no problem. Kids banging on the glass? Yeah, that's a forced prison cell. The Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago, Illinois. Lions, tigers, and apparently well-dressed ghostly apparitions. The zoo was built over Chicago's oldest and largest cemeteries. Probably not a good idea right off the bat. It held the remains of thousands of people. Apparently like 12,000 remains are still under the zoo, which is apparently to blame for all the hauntings that take place there. Victorian-era clothing just seen wandering about the park. Opened in the 1860s, and since then, dapper-dressed visitors have been known to congregate there. Ghostly women can be spotted near the lion house, near and in the ladies' room. Reflections of ghosts in the mirrors are notoriously reported. That's horrifying. Can you imagine? Ah! It's a handsome guy behind me there. Number 9, altered carbon. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to Hulk smash that button at the end, huh? Or leave us a comment on what haunting history you want to know more about. Speaking of history, NASA did their first twins study a couple of years ago, and the findings are different, to say the least. 7% of astronaut Scott Kelly's genetic makeup, expression, DNA, and genes did not return to baseline after his return to home. What? Yeah, his identical twin and fellow astronaut Mark Kelly remained on Earth was compared against his brother's genes. Kelly's newly genetic expression had in fact changed. Good news? He and Mark are still identical twins. Kinda. Kelly's transformation took a hold of at least 5 biological pathways and functions in his body. Chemical changes in his RNA and DNA were measured. 93% of Kelly's genes stayed the same, but some a little different. Thought to be caused by the stresses of space travel on the body, scientists are still scratching their heads at this one. I also find it super interesting that the name Scott Kelly just got handpicked for the UAP study team at NASA, huh? Interesting. Number 8, Old State. 5 miles south of Santa Fe, New Mexico lays a maximum security prison built in 1885. 3 infamous and bloody riots. 1922, 1953, and the worst of all, 1980. The 80s, that'll do it to you. Arguably the worst prison riot in American history. February 2nd, the inmates initiated a riot which led to the complete control over the prison for at least 2 days. Overcrowded, underfunded, and riddled with fresh-faced security. After escaping, the cellmates tortured 12 prison guards and murdered 33 fellow inmates. Trust me, medieval in nature. And cue paranormal sightings around cell block 4. The men in number 4 were apparently butchered and even hanged in the cell. This section of the prison was closed in 1998 and is now referred to as Old Main. Ghostly figures have been seen roaming the halls, slamming cell doors apparently. Yeah, see, this is why I don't even jaywalk, you know what I mean? I don't take the risk. Places like this, right here. Number 7, the Sea Witch. Planes, trains, and automobiles, and haunted boats, apparently. The USS Salem, a heavy World War II cruiser built in 1945, found herself steered towards a distress call from a disaster brewing. The USS Salem responded to the 1953 Ionian earthquake, aka the Great Kefalonia earthquake. The USS Salem landed on Greek shores and acted as an improvised hospital and morgue. The Sea Witch is what they called her. Paranormal activities that arise on this ship include more than 9 ghosts. The Burning Man, the Cook, the 2 little girls, the Salty Captain, and of course, the Hellhounds. Yeah, an aggressive pack of ghostly dogs growling, scratching, and sniffing at locked doors in the middle of the night. Hellhounds. Like, really? Number 6, the Lizzie Borden House. A quaint bed and breakfast located at one of America's most haunted houses. Complimentary coffee, breakfast, and banshees, apparently. The murders of Lizzie Borden in 1892. One of the most infamous crime figures known for murdering her parents with a hatchet. Well, they think. She was acquitted of the killings and the case remains unsolved to this day. The infamous and popular Boston children's rhyme is linked to this case. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw that she had done, she gave her father 41. That was like the worst accent I've ever done. That's horrible. Kids today. Although Lizzie Borden was acquitted and found not guilty, the dark history draws in crowds every night for its nightly ghost tours around the house. The infamous Lizzie Borden room is where apparently the murders took place. It's actually requested the most for paranormal overnighters. A little jingle and a continental breakfast, huh? Not the scariest on the list, but definitely the sickest. Just eating eggs Florentine where someone got axed? I don't know. Number 5. Keramikos. This earth is a very old place, isn't it? Göbekli Tepe, Petra, like these places are old. But Greece? Greece is like ancient old. In 2020, a collection of more than 30 inscribed tablets were found at the bottom of a 3,000-year-old Athenian well in the ancient cemetery of Keramikos. Scary enough, right? You see, these tablets bear curses and prayers to the gods of the underworlds. Yeah. Back then, black magic and the use of curses was forbidden in Greece, which makes this even more jarring. Refound in 2016, the cemetery where the well lays was first excavated in 1870. During World War II, the excavation lost momentum and was partially ruined. The site consists of a massive sanctuary housing thousands of precious artifacts from thousands of years ago. Keramikos, from the Greek word for pottery and ceramics, arguably the most important cemetery of all ancient Athens. And of course, absolutely riddled with the oldest tombs and curses that went along with them. So much jealousy back then too, huh? Adonis is mine. Callisto and your high cheekbones. Number 4. The Double Eagle. In Mesilla, New Mexico, they're grilling up more than just steaks. The Double Eagle restaurant is a must-stop for paranormies. Property's first owners, the Mays family. A grisly history with this one. Mom, aka Sonora Mays, expected only the best for her son Armando, and I don't think she saw that in her son's lover's eyes. 2 forbidden star-crossed lovers and a pair of sewing scissors. Uh-oh. Double hamburgers and double homicides, apparently. The Double Eagle restaurant is home to a murder most foul. When Sonora Mace discovered the relationship between her son and the lover of a lower class, she demanded that it end immediately. Mom came home unexpectedly, interrupting the lover's mid-swoon. She grabbed her sewing shears and attacked Enos, killing her. However, mid-stab, Armando threw his body in front and was stabbed too. Yeah, that's some Romeo and Juliet shit right there. Overnighters report ghostly figures and the feeling of heartache, for never was a story of more woe than this of Enos and her Armando. Number 3. The Bed of Ware. Apparently there's a bed that makes you more woozy and sick than that of a drunken night on a waterbed. Yeah, I know. I've been there, I had one. See, this bed, the Great Bed of Ware, doesn't really like people sleeping on it. The hardwood oak is richly decorated and carved with symbols and hieroglyphics you could stare at all day. A true California king. Built in the 15th century for King Edward IV, it was defaced and graffitied so hard over the years that it's absolutely riddled head to toe in curses. You're not of royal blood? Don't even think about napping near this thing. People who have spent the night apparently are violently awoken by visitors watching them sleep. You were there and you were there? There are so many initials and images carved into the wood that it's hard to know who actually the bed was made for, generation after generation. The bed lays in the British galleries of the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. We need the Long Island medium to like take a nap in there. See what she sees, you know? Number 2. Ballista balls. More than 2,000 stones were found during an archaeological excavation in an ancient city between Syria and Israel where the Golan Heights sit, home to the most amount of ancient ballista stones from the early Roman period. Ballista balls are basically sanded stones, small and smooth, designed for an ancient slingshot catapult thing. Like a snowball to the head, but a rock. Very deadly. In 2020, ballista balls in Israel were returned to the authorities apparently 15 years after they were stolen from the site. Returned by an anonymous person from the Jerusalem Walls National Park in the city of David, the man returned the 2,000-year-old ballista balls and wrote a little note. Yeah, quote, "These are 2 Roman ballista balls from Gamla. I stole them in 1995. Since then, they've brought me nothing but trouble. Please do not steal antiques." End quote. Thank you, random guy with bad luck and curses. Yeah, don't steal, that's bad. It's against the law. There's ancient curses still out there too. Like, there's lots we don't know here still. And number 1, the Bridgewater Triangle. Just south of Boston is one of the most bizarre and haunted places on this planet. 200 miles of connected events. The Bridgewater Triangle. It's named from the triangle shape geographically mapped in which paranormal phenomenon occurs. Like a little fenced off area of scary stuff. Everything from orbs, UFOs, Bigfoots, fairies, skinwalkers, beastly hybrids, you name it, it's there. The towns that are included in this so-called paranormal vortex are Raynham, Brockton, Norton, Taunton, and of course the lovely Bridgewater, all subject to the universal head scratcher. In the 1970s, there was a huge surge of UFO witnesses, and at the same time, Bigfoot witnesses, and of course at the same time, ghost witnesses. Yeah, night after night. Huge humanoid creatures, motherships, whatever it is or was, the Bridgewater Triangle is home to a plethora of spooky. So Halloween Town. Halloween Town. We should rename it to Halloween Town. Number 10. Chateau de Montségur. A petite fortress in southern France, sitting atop a 170-meter drive uphill. Its ruins a safe house for once the Cathars. Its nickname? Satan's Synagogue. Described as one of the first Cathar castles and has been listed as a monument historique by the French Ministry of Culture. Cathar from the Greek meaning pure. These people were devout. The stronghold fell after a bloody 10-month siege in 1244 by King Louis IX. The field below is known to have been where over 200 men and women were burned alive for having refused to renounce their faith. On that day, the apparent bonfire that happened sparked a curse from the Cathars. Legends of these ruins say any person who strays off the marked footpaths and loses their footing will drop off every side of the so-called, quote, citadel in the sky. Sounds more like a metaphor to me than a curse, but yeah. Number 9. Guri Lamar. Guri Lamar is a mausoleum of the Turco-Mongol conqueror Timur in Uzbekistan, an important place in history of Central Asia. The mausoleum has been heavily restored since, but other than tourists and selfies, the people who intend to learn more of its rich history tend to respect its space. Local residents tried to stop the excavations, but the expedition continued. The tomb was opened by Soviet archaeologists in 1941 and was aimed to examine the human remains and family that belonged to Timur himself. On June 20th, the tomb was opened and the air filled with sharp, choking odors of resins, camphor, and frankincense. At first they thought the smell was the sign of a curse. Then they read Timur's tomb. Yeah, a curse. 2 inscribed warnings that read, "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble. Whosoever disturbs my tomb will unleash an invader more terrible than I." Yeah, sounds right. Number 8. Kalaupapa. In 1866, during the reign of Kamehameha V, Hawaiian legislature passed a law designing this island the official site for patients affected by leprosy, aka Hansen's disease. About 1,200 families were exiled to quarantine here. At the time, the disease wasn't really understood, believing it to be highly contagious and very incurable. Whisked off and locked away amid paradise in total isolation. No amenities, buildings, or even potable water sources. Known by historians who visit as, quote, the pit of hell itself. And apparently the most cursed place on earth. With its grim history of loneliness, despair, and death, it's not surprising at all that Kalaupapa is also said to be haunted. Yeah, I mean, like, this island was basically a death sentence for those on it. Shackles, cages, caves. Sounds about right to be haunted by the afterlife, doesn't it? Number 7. Beit She'arim. The House of Gates, or Beit She'arim, Israel, is popular for its necropolis, known as Beit She'arim National Park. It's partially an excavated archaeological site consisting of a necropolis of rock-cut tombs. Declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2015, this thing is old. Only a portion has been excavated. A stone book, catacombs, mausoleums, and sarcophagi have all been found riddled in elaborate chiseled and painted symbols and inscriptions in Hebrew and in Greek. It's the most ancient, extensive Jewish cemetery in the world. And of course, haunted and cursed. I mean, why wouldn't it be, right? A hex designed to deter grave robbers is scrawled into the limestone slabs in uneven Greek writing, blood red in paint. It reads, quote, Jacob the proselyte vows to curse anybody who would open this grave. So nobody open it. Number 6. Anjakuni Village. Way up north, a village named after a bountiful, massive freshwater lake in Canada. Nunavut, 1932. A Canadian fur trapper went to the village of Anjakuni Lake. Known for their markets of elaborate fish and extensive winemaking, this village was a staple for most on the map. He arrived and sensed something a little odd. Too quiet and too foggy. He found it to be completely empty and deserted, even though there were signs of life still present. Campfires blazing, pots still boiling, doors were even open and food out waiting to be served, but no people. Thousands of Anjakuni villagers had simply vanished. To this date, there's no proper explanation for this mass disappearance of the people, and the weirdest part all of the graves in the village cemetery were emptied as well. Even the skeletons from the ground were dug up. Nothing left but a pack of frozen sled dogs. RCMP thinks it was blue lights in the sky. I'm just saying, I didn't say it, they said it, not me. Number 5. The City of Screams. Ah yes, Shara-i-Galgala, the City of Screams, top of my trip list. Peaceful once, as it was the capital of the Gorid people, until Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire seized it in about the 12th century. Apparently legend goes its ruler, Jalaluddin, fought back and killed Khan's son. Yeah, that's probably not a good idea. At first the city held strong but was sold out by the ruler's daughter, who, according to legend, betrayed the castle's secret entrance, sharing and consorting with the enemy. Expecting to be rewarded, of course, her and her people were slaughtered, and the ruins cursed. Russians, Taliban, and Americans have all used these ruins as fighting posts over the years, as this place hasn't even been lived in since. Haunted by its legend of those who still hear the screams of the slain, citing dark horseback figures and even uniformed specters are seen atop the rubble. Yeah, I'd say we just leave this place alone completely, just kinda back away slowly in respect, you know? Number 4. Skeleton Lake. Deep within the Himalayas of India lay the bay of an ancient lake, shrouded in an ancient mystery. Rupkund Lake, aka Skeleton Lake, was rediscovered by British forest rangers in around 1942. What they found was jarring. Hundreds of ancient human skeletons found at the edge of the lake. Investigations led some to think that it was a catastrophe of some sort. Nope, just 3 different groups of people died here at different times. But why? Wooden artifacts, iron spearheads, even slippers and jewelry were found by the National Geographic team who studied 30 skeletons in 2003. Skin still on some of them. 300 people have been found so far. Legend goes, Parvati, a supreme goddess, cursed the kingdom, unleashing drought and disaster upon them. She sent down a blizzard of hail and whirlwind which swept the people into the lake. I'm saying my prayers tonight, yo. I don't want to get like Jack Skellington out of nowhere. That sounds horrifying. Number 3. Karun Treasure. If we've learned anything about the famous Howard Carter curse with the excavation in Egypt, we see where this is already going, don't we? The people in Yusuk, Turkey believe that the treasure found here is cursed. Karun Treasure is the name given to the collection of 363 valuable Lydian artifacts from the 7th century BC. Also called the Croesus Treasure. The treasure included gold and silver, rare Lydian coins, silver vessels, jewelry, even carved marble sphinxes. The discovery in 1966 made those afraid of it may bring upon an ancient curse. Little dynamite and voila, open sesame. 7 men and related violent deaths or great misfortunes. We've learned nothing, haven't we? The treasure was inside the burial chamber of an unknown princess. Yeah, that sounds about right. What do you think? Should we be just mucking around with ancient sites and buried treasure? I'm saying leave it alone, dude. There's a lot of this stuff out there, you know? Number 2. Mainz. Mainz was founded by the Romans in the 1st century BC as a military fortress. Mainz became an important city in the 8th century AD as part of the Holy Roman Empire, and later famous as the birthplace of Johannes Gutenberg, the inventor of the modern printing press. Mainz and its connected Jewish cemetery are both UNESCO World Heritage Sites, because what they found there is pretty eerie. Tons of cursed tablets. The Roman temple of Magna Mater and Isis in Mainz has people puzzled. Thousands of cursed tablets, strips of lead inscribed with requests for divine intervention, then thrown into fiery pits at said temple. In the sanctuary, the mother goddess, Magna Mater, was worshipped according to the inscriptions. The cult of Isis originates from Egypt, while the Mater Magna is a Greek adoption of the goddess. Both cults a long tradition in the Roman Empire. The Isis cult, established under Caligula with military brick stamps found on site, means this place was built on behalf of the emperor for lots of cult practice. And number 1, Mount Ebal. Mount Ebal is one of the 2 mountains in the West Bank territories of Palestine, next to Mount Gerizim. In advance of the Israelites' entry to the Promised Land, Deuteronomy 11:29 records Moses saying, quote, "When the Lord, your God, has brought you into the land which you go to possess, you shall put the blessing on Mount Gerizim and the curse on Mount Ebal." In Deuteronomy 27, an instruction is given to build an altar on Mount Ebal. When done, split into 2 groups, one on Mount Ebal to pronounce curses, and one on Mount Gerizim to pronounce blessings. Well, discovered in 2019, a teeny tiny tablet was found dating to the Bronze Age. Scott Stripling, Pieter van der Veen, and Professor Galil claim to have found the earliest written examples of God's name as Yahweh. It says, quote, "Cursed, cursed, cursed, cursed by the God Yahweh. You will die cursed. Cursed you will surely die. Cursed, 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 cursed." Alright, we get it.
Number 10. Lizzie Borden's house. A bed and breakfast located at 230 2nd Street is home to one of America's most haunted and mysterious houses ever. Now, the Lizzie Borden house gets its momentum from the unsolved murder, of course, of Lizzie Borden back in 1892. She's one of the most infamous true crime figures known for killing her father and stepmother horribly. She did it with a hatchet. Just in case you're thinking, how did she do it? A hatchet. There's a twisted rhyme about the incident, but I'm not gonna sing that here. I'm not getting cursed on YouTube, but thanks. If you know it, hum it. It's pretty catchy. 1892, Lizzie's stepmother of 27 years, she was hit 19 times while her father, Andrew, was hit 11 times. Now, although Lizzie Borden was acquitted and found not guilty, the dark history draws in crowds, of course, every night for its nightly tour of the premises. Gotta make a buck off this horrible history, right? Netflix and, you know, real life. The Lizzie Borden room, the infamous room where these horrors took place, is requested for the most paranormal overnighters. Yeah, some 1408 stuff, people staying overnight in haunted houses. Would you ever do this? Number 9. Leap Castle. Leap Castle, Ireland. Built around 1250, this beauty was one of the most lived-in castles in Ireland. It was built originally by the O'Bannon family. The classic happens, father dies, powerful family, no successor to the throne. This turned into a brother versus brother kind of deal. Things got shady, a lot of family attacks, nobody could get along, so now we got a castle full of ghosts. A popular sighting is 2 haunting ghost girls playing in the main hallway. Their apparition has been seen since the 1600s. But the most famous sighting is that of the Red Lady. The Red Lady wears a long red dress. She's tall and lean and she has one of her hands raised. That's terrifying. Could you imagine a ghost trying to block you at all times, just coming down the hallway? Number 8, the Ram Inn. An ancient old haunted inn. Nope, I could never. Also, this one doubles as a functioning pub located in England. Okay, that one I could probably do. That one I could maybe do. The inn has been owned and operated by many folks since as early as the 1100s. The ancient Ram Inn has been investigated by years of paranormal researchers. Shows like Ghost Adventures, Most Haunted, Ghost, you know, you name it, all of them, people with, you know, they've stood around there and pointed things. Haunted, for sure haunted. That's what they did. They stood there and went. Legend has it that the energy from Stonehenge actually feeds the property's paranormal power. Not to mention the backyard is home to a 5,000-year-old pagan burial ground. Stonehenge feeding power? I mean, that's one way to save on your electricity bill. You know, got any tips? Sans ghosts, got any tips? Number 7, Kaluapapa. Heading over to the beautiful Hawaii for this one. I know one of our viewers is from Hawaii. Always wanted to go. Thing is, islands in the middle of the ocean scare the shit out of me. And also, haunted villages. Yeah, we don't like both of those combined. This was once referred to as the most cursed place on Earth. The coast of Molokai sounds like a great time, and from Google Earth it certainly looks like a fair weekend getaway, but for over 100 years, this was an isolation coast for patients with leprosy. That of course had to change at some point, and the laws did in 1969. But as of right now, no more than 5 people live on this part of the island due to its cursed history. Fair, that's more than fair, I wouldn't do it. Would you do it? Would you live on a cursed island? I mean, it's beautiful, you get a tan, sure, but you'd also get haunted. Number 6, the Conjuring Farmhouse. We may have a clear photo with the real Bathsheba Sherman, aka a real life witch from the Conjuring movie. Yeah, this photo is from the Perron family farmhouse back when it was the old Arnold estate. Now, if you've seen the first Conjuring film, it's based on those events that happened in this estate in real life. This was 1885 and this witch lived next door to the farm. And although we'll never really know it, many believe she's the lady in the middle closest to the camera. Also the fact that she's standing by herself, I feel like that's for sure a witch, you know, like the vibe of the group was off, everyone kind of like shuffled away from the witch. This is the real house. It's referred to by the Perron family as the old Arnold estate, so 2 names gets kind of confusing, but it's the one place. It's located in Harrisville, Rhode Island. Aside from paranormal horrors, the Perron family also had to deal with financial ones. When the family lived there, a pipe burst randomly and then just flooded their entire business, so they had to sell off more than 85% of their land. Do you guys think the real Bathsheba Sherman is in this photo? The lady on the left there also looks a little witchy, I don't know. But who am I to judge? It's greedy. Number 5. Amityville House. You've more than likely seen this photo, either in the Amityville horror movie, or maybe you've seen it go viral since. The demonic ghost boy photograph. Also, great name, really gets to the point. This photo was taken inside the actual Amityville house back in 1976. It was taken with automatic cameras equipped with infrared, and a photographer named Gene Campbell set the whole operation up. Gene was working with paranormal investigators at the time. He was working with Ed and Lorraine Warren. Yeah, the classic. Now we're getting it. Now oh, this may be real. This photo was revealed 3 years after it was taken on the Merv Griffin show. Now, of course, it was a big deal, and many believe this is in fact one ghost of John DeFeo, one of the boys who lived there before that horrible 1974 event. What do you guys think? Elaborate hoax, or perhaps this photo is one solid piece of evidence that maybe, probably the Amityville horror house is indeed haunted? Number 4, the Queen Anne Brick Mansion. Heading over to Georgia for this haunted mansion. When I say mansion, also, I mean like Haunting of Hill House type mansion, not like Will Smith mansion. Know what I mean? No one's playing tennis in the back of this one. In Savannah's Columbia Square, the Queen Anne Brick Mansion was built in 1892 for William and Anne Kehoe and their 10 kids. After a few deaths took place in the house, the building was converted into a bed and breakfast. And since 1992, guests have reported hearing footsteps, seeing ghosts, and also sounds of kids playing. I don't want that in a regular bed and breakfast, let alone a haunted one, you know? Just let me sleep. Why am I hearing squeaks, like shoe squeaks outside? Maybe we're in Will Smith's mansion, maybe. Maybe they're playing tennis. Number 3, Bangor Fort. Back in the 16th century, King Madho built the massive Bangor Fort in India. Now, the population of this small town was around 1,000, give or take. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful fort. Many considered this a luxury, and rightfully so. It looks like a set piece from Game of Thrones. But legend has it, Princess Ratnavati, who at the time was living in the luxurious fort, she was the talk of the town. Dudes were proposing left, right, and center, trying everything to get her attention. Princes of all over the world would come in and try and take her hand. Now, one day when visiting town, a magician named Scindia saw the princess shopping for perfume, so he planned on using the black magic of Vashikaran on the princess. Yeah, he mixed it with the perfume that she was admiring, but it didn't work. The princess smashed the perfume, and as the bottle broke apart, the magician cursed the entire fort and those living inside of it. Only days later, a war erupted around the fort, and there were, of course, tons of casualties. So let's avoid this area forever, shall we? I mean, a magician curse, there's a war 2 days later, it's a fort. Those are hot words, I'm not going in that area. Number 2, the Humble Inn. Sounds very humble, sounds calm. The Busby stoop chair comes from 1702, and its curse arrived promptly after Englishman Thomas Bubsey had some issues with his father-in-law at the Humble Inn. Yeah, he also didn't handle these issues too well, so now he has to be hanged for it. Can't just kill people, Thomas, alright? Relax. He was hanged right near the Humble Inn, but a chair that was nearby is now said to hold that spirit of one Thomas Busby. If you sit on this chair, you are set to die in a frightful accident. A frightful accident. I don't even know what that means, but it sounds, well, sounds frightful, sounds horrible. Locals say during World War II, airmen from a nearby base came to the pub, and those who sat on this chair never returned. In the 70s, more accidents were also connected, but they still kept the chair around at the Humble Inn for some reason until 1978. At that point, the chair was donated to the Thirsk Museum, where it now sits haunted. So that's great. Imagine just like dealing with a haunted chair. That's a lot of responsibility. Not even a rocking chair either, just a chair. And finally, number 1, the Dark Mirror. The Dark Mirror, is that the Thor sequel nobody liked, or is that something else? The Dark Mirror is part of a fun little collection. The world's only mobile museum of the unexplained. So yeah, could approach in your neighborhood anytime. I don't know, keep an eye out for floating mobile museums. This mirror that travels with it supposedly doesn't shine bright like a diamond. Instead, this dark mirror has a life of its own. The museum obtained it originally from the owner who purchased it at a psychic fair in the Columbus area. That's a pretty solid place to get something like that. It checks out. The same owner said the mirror reflected horrifying visions when they gazed into it. And according to the museum, visitors also claim to have reported uncomfortable sightings such as their own corpse when gazing into the reflective glass. Yeah, I'm looking in, I'm like, no spoilers. I'm only on season 28 of Life, so I'm gonna gaze away. Number 10, St. George's Church. Kicking off our spooky list, we're gonna head to the Czech Republic. St. George's Church was originally built way back in 1352. That's a long time ago, and it's seen many dark days, of course. The building itself was destroyed many times by fires, century after century, yet it somehow survived all of them. One of the worst timed events ever happened in 1968, and this is what makes people think it's haunted. More than fair. The roof partially collapsed during a funeral service, and after that point, everyone was convinced that the church was haunted, and they refused to enter and do any more services inside. More than fair. That's the worst timing ever. I'm thinking of I Think You Should Leave Season 2, Coffin Drop. I'm thinking of that sketch right now. That's gonna be in my head all day. The location is still a hotspot. Since 2012, many visitors entered the cursed church. Would you go in? Would you do it? I would, probably. I'd poke my hand in a little, see what happens. I'm terrified of ghosts. I wouldn't go near that. Number 9, Edinburgh Castle. Scotland's capital city. I've been to Scotland a handful of times. It's one of my favorite places to visit. All those pubs, ooh, what a good time. Wish I could remember. It's got a castle, I've heard. You got a castle over there. Apparently, Edinburgh Castle, I of course have to visit every time I go. It's a calf workout that I look forward to, personally. Now, some of these parts in the castle are chilling, because it's, it's freezing cold in Scotland, but sometimes you can feel the haunt in the air. These rooms date back to more than 900 years ago, so these walls have seen a few fortnights. Sightings are pretty popular. Sightings of a colonial prisoner from the American Revolutionary War, that's pretty common, so that's terrifying to hear. And as well as French prisoners from the 7 Years' War. You're just gonna see ghosts of prisoners that might pop up or photobomb you. That's really, I'm terrified talking about this. If you're thinking about visiting, perhaps the ghost of the wandering dog in the castle cemetery will convince you to buy a ticket. I love Scotland, it's beautiful. The air just smells nice. Got a big old hill too. Number 8, Almadam. Almadam is about 40 miles southeast of Dubai. This ghost village was built back in the 1970s and it was deserted shortly after. It's beautiful, but legend has it the land is full of shape-shifting spirits, you may have heard of them, called jinns. Now these spirits are responsible for scaring folks away from the town. Yeah, that ought to do it. Now it's tough to tell whether the spirits have since departed. I mean, that would be ideal, but Almadam still looks haunted and it still is abandoned, so yeah, my vote is probably still haunted. Dunes that partially swallow rows of houses and a mosque, it all just sits there, stuck in history. Now these spirits are still living in the 70s, so who knows? This is their home, not ours, so let's just leave this one alone. It looks like something out of Tim Burton's Beetlejuice, you know what I mean? All the sand, just barren. It's haunting, so jarring to look at. Or that one level from Mario Odyssey that's just, sand and nothing else. Number 7, Gunnever, Iceland. This one has heavy history behind it, holy smokes. Now sometimes places are haunted by multiple ghosts, past prisoners, while others have, just one up story. Iceland's Gunnever mud pool, perhaps you visited, it sounds kind of, nice when I say it out loud. It's one of the largest and haunted. Apparently, the pool was named after Gunna, a woman who lived in this area of the peninsula 400 years ago. Sadly, Gunna passed away of starvation, but her spirit apparently came back home and killed the current landlord and his wife. It was terrifying. That's a big yikes. The town called in a priest to take care of that issue, but of course, some visitors today claim to see that same ghost of one Gunna around the very same boiling hot mud pool. One Gunna sounds like a rapper, I don't know why I said that. Ghost or no ghost, I'm not going anywhere. This sounds like an expensive hazard to be near. Anything boiling or muddy? I'm like, no, that's a hazard, that's hot. Number 6, RMS Queen Mary. Heading over to the beautiful Long Beach, California. Here we go. I'll tell you right now, I would never spend a night in this hotel. Nope, I would rather sleep in Stephen King's 1408 hotel room than this RMS Queen Mary situation. During World War II, the ship was in operation briefly, and then it served as a luxury ocean liner from 1936 to 1967. Now during this time, a killing happened, a sailor was also crushed by a door, very tragic, and a couple people had drowned in the pool. So it's a lot of bad stuff going on here. It's like the back of a DVD of Ghost Ship. You're like, what am I reading? This is terrifying. Cut to 1967, Long Beach purchased that ship and turned it into a hotel, a flotel, dare I say, where now it still sits today. Would you visit here? Would you spend the night in this haunted Titanic? Let alone, I wouldn't even step a foot on the boat, no way. Boats scare me in general, let alone ghosts on a boat. Number 5, haunted ballroom. This one I would for sure check out. I would definitely moonwalk in a haunted ballroom. Are you kidding me? This is like the first 8 minutes of that Thriller music video. This house, if you want to call it that, this mansion slash castle, was built between 1871 and 1887 for New Zealand politician William Larnach. And like every other Disney castle, you need to have a 3,000 square foot ballroom. Yeah, no friends required, just here's the big ballroom, good luck. Larnach gave his 21-year-old daughter a ballroom for her birthday. Yeah, here you go, Kate, now go make thousands of friends. Good luck. Would you want a ballroom, like as a gift? That feels like the worst gift ever. What happened to ponies, Dad? Jeez. Kate sadly passed away at age 26 due to typhoid cancer, but death does not get in the way for Kate. No, the spirit of the youngin' is still said to haunt the ballroom and still dance around. So, beautiful on one hand, so terrifying on the other. A haunted ballroom ghost? That's the scariest movie I can imagine. Number 4, the Snedeker House. This is a classic Ed and Lorraine Warren ghost story. They have a few out there, probably too many, but we'll see. It was the main inspiration, believe it or not, to The Haunting in Connecticut. We've seen that movie. It's a classic. It's a good banger right there. Ed and Lorraine got a call from the owners in real life of the home saying that their son was experiencing personality changes. Now at first, maybe you'd laugh at that call. Maybe he's just growing up. Maybe he's a bit moody, whatever. Now this was not the case at all. He wasn't just a moody teen growing up, you know, shut up dad. That wasn't that here. These changes were violent in nature, and on top of that, a pretty obvious other issue, they were seeing apparitions in their home. Son's acting odd, and we also have ghosts, so Ed and Lorraine were of course interested. Why not? Old house in Southington, Connecticut. Alan and Carmen Snedeker then found these tools, old tools used by morticians in their house. Yeah, their home was once a funeral parlor. Fun fact to find out after you've moved in, I guess. That's the worst thing to find out. One day when Carmen was mopping the floor, it apparently turned blood red and began to smell foul. So Ed and Lorraine came to one conclusion, and that was demons. The house was full of them. Yeah, that ought to do it. You start mopping, all of a sudden there's blood everywhere. You're like, well, that's it. It's your home now. Enjoy. Let it dry, and then, yeah, pine sols in the cupboard. Brick legs. Number 3. 455A Sackett Street. Not to be confused with 221B Baker Street, that's where Sherlock Holmes lives. 455A Sackett Street is a haunted apartment in Brooklyn. Yeah, it's not very majestic, not a lot of eyeglasses. Imagine moving to the big city, a big city that's known for being loud, and on top of that, now you have ghosts. Good luck getting a wink of sleep. One lady who grew up in the apartment experienced these hauntings herself. Apparently fires would start randomly, loud bangs would happen in other rooms, all around just bad energy, which given what I just said seems more than fair. Sightings of apparitions were common, but it was always the same female looking spirit. Number 2, cursed stadium. Can a sports team be cursed? I mean, I live in Toronto, home of the Maple Leafs, so our last win was like 1743, I believe. I don't know. But the Chicago Cubs curse, maybe you've heard of this. That was a huge deal for a very long time. The Chicago Cubs curse comes from 1945, when a man named Bill Sionis, nicknamed Billy Goat, great nickname, he was kicked out of a Chicago Cubs game. He actually didn't even get into the game 4 to begin with. Was he too intoxicated, or did he bring a live goat with him to the game? Yep, the latter. That's why he got kicked out. Bill brought with him his pet goat for good luck. So, you know, after the staff said, of course, no, you can't enter the 1945 World Series with a live goat, get out, he then cursed the club over and over on his way out, saying the Cubs ain't gonna win no more. And that was the game that they dropped the ball, pun intended. The Detroit Tigers won, and the curse of the Billy Goat then kicked off for real. It got so out of hand that come 1994, that long later, the Cubs had lost 12 games in a row, their worst home start in history. So Sam Sionis went to Wrigley Field, everybody was chanting to, you know, finally let the goat in, and then the Cubs won 5-2. So, I don't know. It's kind of proven that there was a little bit of a curse here. Number 1, the Borley Rectory. This house was originally built back in 1862. It was a house built for the rector of Borley, but after a fire in 1939, it was of course never the same. It was finally demolished after 1944, but before its final days, the Daily Mirror printed a lot of history about this house, just working for BuzzFeed back in the 40s. Harry Price, a paranormal researcher at the time, reported sightings of a ghost nun or a ghost car that would often drive by. Both probably so distracting to your day-to-day duties. As well as footsteps and unexplained sounds on the property, it was all deemed haunted. A little piece of the haunted home still sits in the Warren Occult Museum today. It's a brick, a nice haunted brick from the Borley Rectory. The rectory, the Borley, just a haunted brick. Hey, come on up to, hey, line on up around the block to see this haunted brick. Yeah, not bad, right? Check out that ghost brick.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the movement for the restoration of the 10 Commandments of God. This cult with the catchiest name was founded in Uganda by 4 ex-Roman Catholic priests, 2 ex-nuns, and 1 former sex worker, and it was initially said to really emphasize the 10 Commandments. Apparently, these leaders thought that the Roman Catholic Church had really just abandoned the 10 Commandments, and they wanted to bring back some rules. They couldn't just focus on these rules, however, they also had to have some sort sort of doomsday prophecy as well, like all good cults do. They claimed that the apocalypse would come on December 31st, 1999, and in anticipation of this, a bunch of the members sold all of their possessions, so of course, they were pretty irritated when the world in fact did not end. The leaders scrambled and instead altered their predictions, saying that the Virgin Mary would instead come on March 17th, 2000, and that she would bring them all to heaven. The followers continued to believe this, and on March 16th, they had a huge feast. The following day, on March 17th, police arrived to where the cult resided and found that an explosion and fire killed hundreds of members of the group. At first, they thought this could have been a voluntary event, but soon they saw the signs that pointed to this being a mass killing. The leaders likely took the lives of the followers because they could not pay them back, and they also knew that their quote-unquote prophecies were false. At first, it was thought that the leaders were among those whose bodies were found, but that isn't quite the case. No one is exactly sure if they ended up losing their lives, or if they instead fled the country, which many believe to be the case. At this point, there is still a warrant out for their arrest, so while the authorities have never officially confirmed that they are on the run, it truly is the most likely scenario. In our number 9 spot today, we have Shinrikyo. This cult was founded by a man named Shoko Asahara, and he claimed to be the reincarnation of the Hindu god Shiva. He said that he was destined to lead his followers to salvation once the apocalypse came, but then once he lured in followers, he claimed he could also teach them to levitate and develop telepathic abilities. Apparently, those who were the most skeptical, he allowed them to drink his bathwater. Not really seeing the connection on that one, to be totally honest, but those are just the facts. The cult continued to grow and drew in influential and wealthy people, and this is where things really took a turn for the worst. This group went on to attack Tokyo in 1994, which took the lives of 7 people. Then, in 1995, they released gas into the Tokyo underground, which led to 12 deaths, 50 injured people, and more than 5,000 people with temporary vision problems. In the end, Asahara and 11 of his disciples ended up being arrested and charged for these crimes, and after standing trial, they were all sentenced to death in 2004. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Narco-Satanists. Founded by a man named Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo, he was at one point a drug dealer and also the leader of a horrifying cult that was nicknamed the Narco-Satanists by the media. Adolfo's followers believed that he had magical abilities, but in the worst way possible. He required his followers to kidnap young men, who Adolfo would practice horrible, sadistic rituals on, and ultimately take their lives in order to replenish this magic that didn't exist. It's an absolutely horrific story, and this carried on for years until the disappearance of Mark Kilroy. Mark was a Texas college student who was in Mexico for some fun over spring break in 1989, but sadly during this trip he was taken by the cult's followers. Mark's friends quickly noticed his disappearance and began searching for him, and this led to a border-crossing manhunt, and authorities quickly revealed what had been going on, but Adolfo had already fled. He and 4 of his followers fled to Mexico City, and this is how he was finally caught. Police were called to the apartment they were staying at as a result of a totally unrelated dispute, but because Adolfo knew that they were looking for him, he just assumed that they were there for him, and he opened fire with a machine gun. Not wanting to go to prison, he then handed the weapon over to one of his followers and asked him to open fire on himself, and by the time the police were able to reach the apartment, he was already dead. In the end, 14 cult members were charged for their crimes relating to everything that went on. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Children of God. Karen Zerbe is the leader of the cult now known as the Family of Love, but is much better known by its former name, the Children of God. In 1969, Karen joined a group called Teens for Christ and ended up becoming the personal secretary to David Berg, who is one of the founders of the group. Eventually, David would divorce his wife in order to marry Karen. Karen had a son named Ricky, and his childhood was made into a book which was used to show other members of the cult how they should raise their children, but the book included some pretty horrific and disturbing content. At first, Karen wasn't around or extremely active in the cult, but she began to insert herself more and more and began making rules and enforcing discipline. Once David began to get sick in 1988, Karen took over the leadership position that she had been groomed for. After David passed away, she married another leader from the cult, and all the while, Karen was extremely elusive, so much so that some of the followers didn't even know what she looked like. This cult has actually seen a few celebrities over the years. Jeremy Spencer, who is one of the founding members of Fleetwood Mac, is a member of this cult. Joaquin Phoenix and his siblings were unfortunately subject to this terrible cult when they were growing up, but they all chose to leave later in life and as adults have spoken out about it. Unfortunately, Karen is still active as the cult's leader, even though she most definitely should be in prison, and she still remains in hiding, living off of what money she could collect from followers. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Rajneesh movement. Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh first became known in the 1960s as he traveled through India speaking out against socialism as well as aspects of mainstream religion. While speaking out about these things, he also advocated for a more open attitude when it came to human sexuality, and it's this stance that quickly earned him the nickname the Sex Guru. By the 1980s, he had taken his teachings to the United States, where he opened a facility known as Rajneeshpuram in Wasco County, Oregon, but this quickly upset the locals in the area. Not only were there legal battles surrounding his construction, but there were also crimes being committed by the followers of the Rajneesh movement. And we're talking about really serious crimes. There was a mass food poisoning attack with the Salmonella bacteria, which marked the first known bioterrorism attack in the history of the United States. And if this wasn't bad enough, there was also the attempted assassination of United States Attorney Charles H. Turner. Rajneesh didn't take any responsibility for these crimes and instead blamed his personal secretary and her supporters, but despite this denial, he still found himself deported, after which he returned to India. Here he continued to run the Poon Ashram until his death in 1990. Honestly, the story is absolutely bonkers, the crimes are massive, and the entire thing is just very bizarre. In our number 5 spot today, we have NXIVM. This cult was founded by a man named Keith Rainier, and on the surface level they marketed this group as a multi-level marketing company, but instead it was definitely a cult and a front for disgusting crimes. Keith started off this multi-level marketing career with the company Amway, and by 1990 he had started his own, which ended up getting shut down for being a pyramid scheme. In 1998, NXIVM was founded and was originally called a personal development company and was supposed to help with self-improvement. There was a 12-point mission statement which was recited during the cult classes where they purged themselves of all envy-based habits. There were different modules for classes like relationship sourcing, which helped the members explore ways that they could financially benefit if their partner passed away suddenly, or another class where they only learned about psychopaths and their followers. Eventually, the cult leaders started to branch out and form different organizations related to the cult, and long story long, this cult was not for self-improvement, but was involved in some extremely terrible things. In 2018, Keith was arrested and charged, and in June of 2019, he was convicted for conspiracy and conspiracy to commit forced labor, as well as a few other really awful things, and all of these charges were related to NXIVM. This story really blew up, especially due to the celebrity involvement of actor Allison Mack, who was also arrested for her involvement in the cult. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Manson family. Started by the horrible Charles Manson, this story starts off when Manson was released from prison in 1967, where he then moved to San Francisco, where he gained a small following that would eventually go on to be the cult known as the Family. The group eventually moved to an abandoned ranch outside of Los Angeles, and it was here that Manson continued to brainwash his followers and manipulate them with his own religious philosophies. He is quoted as saying, quote, "I'm God to my friends, I'm the devil to my enemies. When I look to the future, I'm the prophet. When I must lay down the law for our earth, I'm the son of man." Manson claimed that there would be an upcoming race war in which white people would be killed, which was intended to instill fear in his followers. This was so that he could ignite a race war and send his followers on a killing spree, which ended up being the night of the horrible Tate and LaBianca killings. This led to a reign of terror in the Los Angeles area for several months because people just couldn't understand how or why this happened. In our number 3 spot today, we have Heaven's Gate. Started by Marshall Applewhite and his former partner Bonnie Nettles, the two founded the well-known cult Heaven's Gate. These two believed themselves to be something called walk-ins, which they said are higher beings who took control over the bodies of two middle-aged humans so as to spread their word and teach humanity. People who believed their story and were drawn in by the idea of these higher beings were of course being manipulated and taken advantage of, which is all too common in these cult stories and really is the basis for most of these kinds of stories. They gave up their lives and all worldly possessions in the belief that Earth was to be recycled, and the only way to continue surviving would be to leave immediately. The time to leave Earth came in March of 1997 when Marshall claimed that they had a spacecraft that was traveling to the comet Hale-Bopp. The catch with this spacecraft, however, well, Marshall told them that they needed to stage all taking their own lives in order for the UFO to take them to another level of existence above humans. 39 members of this cult, including Marshall himself, took their lives over the course of the next few days. This was the largest event of this kind since the next point we're going to talk about, which brings me to number 2, the People's Temple Full Gospel Church. Jim Jones is certainly one of the most well-known people on this list for all of the wrong reasons. He is the man who claimed that he was the reincarnation of Jesus, Buddha, and Gandhi, and he founded the cult which was originally originally called Wings of Deliverance, but he later changed the name to the People's Temple Full Gospel Church. After an expose in the New West magazine about the things going on in this cult, he ended up moving the group from the United States to Guyana. From here, there were claims of horrible things and human rights violations, which led to an investigation. People found out that some of the supposed members of this cult were actually being held against their will. In the end, with all of this going on, Jim managed to convince his followers to all take their lives in one massive, horrible event, and this day has gone on to become known as the Jonestown Massacre. A total of 918 people died that day, including Jim. In our number 1 spot today, we have Synanon. What originally started out as a drug rehabilitation program founded by Charles Diedrich in 1958, things quickly changed and this began to turn into a sort of group that shared these truth-telling sessions. At first it was known as The Game before the 1970s when Synanon was officially born. The founder, Charles, as he began to get some kind of power, he grew greedy and hungry for more. This led to him starting to charge insane fees for his members, as well as forcing the members to do extreme physical labor. This is all bad enough, but it gets worse. Anyone who tried to shut this little community down would be met with an attempted hit on their life. Charles developed a list for anyone who challenged Synanon, and this included a lawyer by the name of Paul Morantz, who actually almost died as a result of the hit that Charles had put on him. In 1991, Synanon finally met its end when it was shut down for tax fraud, destruction of evidence, and terrorism, and Charles passed away just 6 years later.
Kicking off our list at number 10, Western camel bones. Scientific name being Camelops hesternus, meaning yesterday's camel in Latin. There's a fun fact. Now these bones first appeared in 2008 when gold miners were working in Hunter Creek. It was only 60 miles away from the Alaskan border, when all of a sudden they stumbled across these massive bones, ancient bones. The last time these bones were operating on, actual limbs was 75 to 125,000 years ago. Isn't that incredible? The remains were in such great condition because of the awful surrounding conditions. It was so cold that scientists could actually still extract DNA, which told us that 10 million years ago, roughly, Western camels split from modern day camels. Yeah, we had more camels. Now we don't have many camels. Sad. The more camels, the better. Number 9, Allen Hills meteorite. Alright, this one's for all the space nerds. This next one is literally out of this world. Back in December 1984, American meteor hunters discovered this fragment in Allen Hills, Antarctica. Now this meteor was appropriately named Allen Hills 48001, which is okay, that's right to the point. Now this rock was speculated to come from Mars, and in 1996 a scientist claimed that he discovered bacteria from the microscopic fossils on this meteorite. Now the news of course spread quickly and everybody started to lose their minds. Rightfully so, this is a while ago. Bill Clinton even chimed in. He made a speech about possible discoveries in space with aliens and shit. The scientific community later said this was not the case after further studies, but never say never. Feels like we're getting closer to finding life now with James Webb. I don't know, every time I click refresh, it's like, check out this thing that's in the past. I'm like, what? Number 8, more meteorites. For this one, we'll switch it up. This time, scientists found ice in meteorite. Nice, it's always a good time. James Webb is about to hopefully show us how much water is in space, and I personally am not ready for it. Back in 1990, after the 094 meteorite was discovered in the Algerian mountains, the rock was dated back to 4.6 billion years ago. So scientists studied the meteorite with synchrotron radiation-based X-ray nanotomography, leading scientists to find evidence of tiny pores. Pores believed to have been fossilized ice crystals. That's fun. That's, again, space aliens with water. Who knows? Hopefully. These pores have come from when the meteorite crossed the snow line in space. Now the snow line is a sphere around the sun. It's the exact point where ice on meteorites melts. It's pretty cool. The study was to hopefully find out where water comes from in that galaxy, and it seems that it came from a lot further than we all thought, which is comforting, I guess. Yeah, there's water in space. It's just, way the fuck out there. Number 7, viruses. We're all talking about an ancient virus that's coming back now, some ancient mummified frozen virus. Sounds like we're doomed. Just over a year ago in China, scientists discovered an ancient virus. These samples came from the Tibetan Plateau, and the samples were originally collected back in 2015. Now the contents date back to around 14,400 years ago, long before Captain America went into the ice. And there's dust, gases, and of course, viruses over that long accumulated time, and glaciers just soaked it all in, right? layer after layer, pushing history deeper into its icy core until scientists come in with a few mega drills. Now we're finding dinosaurs, we're finding bones, and also sometimes we find 33 viruses. Yeah, 33! That's like 2 more than my family computer had growing up. That's a lot of viruses. 4 of these viruses typically infect bacteria, and the rest were novel, which means that it's never been seen before. Yeah, how neat is that? Novel viruses. Just what the world needs right now. Number 6, Otzi the Iceman. Discovered in September 1991, this mummy was found on the border of Austria and Italy. He's Europe's oldest known natural mummy. It's pretty amazing. He was covered in ice shortly after his death, so most of the 45-year-old man from the Copper Age was left in rather good condition. A 5,000-year-old man was found in ice. You know, you lose this round, Captain America. Again, I'm just saying. I really thought I'd put you on this list. Not this time. Before we passed in the Italian Alps, Otzi had a number of health problems, it seems, that we've now found many years later. He had arthritis, Lyme disease, and he was lactose intolerant. Thanks to science, we now know that Otzi the Iceman was sharpening his tools right before his death. So he fought till the end. What an OG. Number 5, underneath Thwaites Glacier. We've seen some fascinating stuff here on B. You know, I do my best, specifically underwater footage. I know that gives us all the creeps. We love exploring the deeps for some reason, and this next one I couldn't believe, honestly. You're about to see footage from the bottom of an Antarctic glacier, so buckle up. This glacier is the size of Florida, so if it collapses at any point in our time, our sea levels could rise 10 feet. And in 2019, researchers drilled 2,300 feet through the middle of Thwaites Glacier. Then they dropped a robot with a camera right down, and they saw this. For the first time ever, we've now seen the grounding zone of Thwaites Glacier. Lead scientist Brittany Schmidt says this project is a dream come true, and I can't agree more. It's her walking on the moon moment, and I could not agree more. This feels like another universe almost. This looks like the upside down. This is terrifying. There's only 1 meter of space between the bottom of the glacier and the rocky seafloor, so think about that when you sleep tonight. Number 4, message in a bottle. Back in 1959, a geologist named Paul Walker, no, not that one, not even close, he decided to bury a message in a bottle, and he wanted to make a lasting statement about climate change, so he put this frozen message underneath rocks near a glacier in 1959, and then cut to 2013, well, what do we find again? We find Paul Walker's message in a bottle. The message inside was measurements, and to be exact, it was the length from the exact point of the bottle to the edge of a nearby glacier. But by 2013, many years later, said glacier had shrunk down 200 feet, so now the glacier was much further. A lasting statement indeed, I would say. Good call, Paul Walker. Number 3, Ice Age art. More ancient artwork, but this time we're going to the Colombian Amazon. Now the thing is, unlike other drawings found on the ceilings of tombs or anything like that, this frozen canvas stretches about 8 miles. It's incredible. The paintings inside, they're even more impressive. Dating back to 12,000 years ago, these were made near the end of the last ice age. Thousands of paintings, by the way, not just a handful of arrows, nothing like that, just a huge canvas. These were found in 2017, so pretty recently, but it was only last year where they finally went public with these Arctic findings. Now the findings being, you know, paintings of elephants, massive sloths, horses from the Ice Age, snakes, birds, deer, that kind of stuff. This is now one of the largest collections of rock art in South America. Yeah, pregnant women or the origins of the Ninja Turtles? I don't know. I'm on the fence. You tell me. Number 2, the Glacier Girl. Now before you get worried, no, this next one is not a real person. This next one is a plane. A P-23 aircraft was discovered in Greenland surrounded in ice. Now during World War II in July 1942, 6 P-38 fighter planes were ordered to make an emergency landing in Greenland due to lousy weather conditions and of course low visibility. Now the crew was thankfully saved, but the Lockheed had to be abandoned, never to be seen again for now 50 years. Recently it was dug out of 264 feet of snow and ice. It took years to get this plane back up, but now she of course is known as the Glacier Girl, and in 2017 Lewis Energy CEO Rodney Lewis, he bought this plane. Yeah, they just brought a plane out of the ice and this guy's like, yeah, I'll buy it, debit, no problem. And finally, number 1, a preserved mammoth cub. In 2010, a mummified mammoth cub was discovered in Siberia. Right off the coast of Oyogos, named after a nearby village, Yuka, this newfound cub, is now the best preserved mammoth cub discovered in history. Now this was a fascinating find that should have never been seen again, let alone found in such great condition. It's kind of haunting when you look at it. It still looks alive, you know what I mean? But apparently that's not the end of woolly mammoths. Who knew? It was announced only months ago that a team of scientists and entrepreneurs over at a company called Colossal, they're now planning to bring the woolly mammoth back to life. For reasons, for science reasons. The last mammoth to walk the planet alive was around 10,500 years ago, but what if they were alive today? Colossal raised over $15 million, and now they're working on reviving that woolly mammoth. They're doing this to ideally decelerate the melting of the Arctic permafrost and to save modern elephants from extinction, and of course, to advance CRISPR editing. We love science, maybe a little too much, I don't know. Is it a good idea to bring the woolly mammoth back to life, or are we just, setting them up for another slow, horrible demise once again?